So, why do leadership teams become disconnected from reality?
I've been there, done that. Yeah. I've been there, done that. Yeah. I've been there, done that. And still learning.
Welcome back to Been There, Done That, and Still Learning. I'm Kevin Ertell.
And I'm Matt Marcotte.
Hi, Matt. How you
Hello,
doing today?
sir. How are you today? I like your blue shirt.
Oh, thank you. Yes, brings out my eyes.
I always love that phrase.
I have no idea what it means.
Exactly. What were your eyes doing before you wore the shirt?
Well,
Hiding, apparently.
apparently, yeah, they're behind glasses anyways.
Nothing wrong with glasses, Kevin.
Yeah, I know.
It makes us look smart.
Right.
We have to have some gimmick.
Yeah, mine have no lenses. I just go purely for aesthetics.
Works for me.
All right. Well, hey, let's get into it a little bit because today we are talking about one of the biggest reasons that great strategies fail. And spoiler alert, it's not necessarily because they're bad or because people weren't good at executing them. It's often because leaders kind of slowly become disconnected from the reality they're trying to lead.
Yep.
In the strategy trap, I call this the isolation trap. It happens when executives get in the room and they start to build a strategy, but it's kind of based on limited input and perspective. Because, when you're sitting in a corporate conference room, it's easy to make a lot of assumptions that just don't reflect reality.
Yep.
And I'm sure you've seen this, I've seen this, but as you get higher in an organization, the more likely that information is getting filtered and summarized by the time it gets to you. So you sort of lose all the nuance. And, sometimes, a lot of times, that nuance can make all the difference when you're actually trying to implement something.
100%. It's exactly what I've seen as you have, right, throughout my career. And I think leadership becomes dangerous the moment you start believing reports instead of conversations.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that's part of that isolation that you're talking about, because I feel like, I talk a lot about culture, and culture doesn't happen in executive meetings. It happens where customers are being served, where product is being built, and where employees are making hundreds of decisions every single day. And I think the reality is, just to be fair to leaders, I don't think that they lose connection because they don't care.
Yeah.
I think they lose connection because they start believing the organization they're hearing about is the organization that actually exists.
Yep.
And so, leadership to me isn't about managing reality. It's constantly rediscovering reality.
That's a great way to put it.
Right?
Yeah, because reality changes all the time. To your point, there's hundreds of decisions being made. I saw this study that said that, I think it was from McKinsey, that on average, every person in the company makes 35 conscious decisions a day.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of sounds small.
Well, that's every single person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all right, there you go. That's just a mess. But it's true. I mean, to your point, things are, it's a constantly evolving kind of environment, right? So we can't be static or believe what yesterday is going to be actually true tomorrow unless we check. It's interesting. I'm sure you have done this or experienced this because you've led teams your whole career as well. But, it's interesting. I was in, 34 years in some version of either retail or tech, but always leading large organizations. And one of my biggest fears was being on a conference call, because you and I grew up in a time where we didn't have Zoom. So you didn't see anybody, you just were on a phone with them, right?
Right.
So being on a
in the middle of the table.
Exactly. Oh my God, that one with I thought, is it on? Is it not on? The lights. But the biggest fear is literally being on those calls, and you're talking to the black box, and you're talking to what in my case at some points 25,000 employees, telling about a strategy or a decision or a product or something that we had done in corporate. And on the other end of that phone, people are rolling their eyes, being like, does he even know what we go through? Like, that was like my biggest fear, right? That disconnection from reality. And, I think about, for me, where I feel like my either strength or success as both a leader and a strategist came from was staying connected to the people who were closest to the actual
Yep.
either work or result, which were, right, customers and employees.
Yep.
And because of that, I spent a ton of time both in stores, but also in departments. Like, so when I had corporate, going and dropping into either people's
Yeah.
cubicles or meetings or whatever they might be to just kind of talk. And I would spend hours doing this. In fact, I remember when I was at Apple specifically, we had so many departments, right? There was the Red Zone, which is a sales group. There was the Genius Bar, which we all know what that is. There was a
Mm.
training group, which was, all the creatives and anyway, in small business and whatnot. And when I would go to store visits, I would have meetings with all of these people, and sometimes mixed and sometimes very departmental specific, partially because I wasn't a genius. And so I didn't know what it was like to repair a computer or an iPhone. I wasn't in small business, so I didn't realize. So I couldn't make decisions that were good decisions in isolation. And so
Right.
you really started tapping into the hive mind of the people who really understood. And at the same time, really asking them things like, what could we be doing differently? What's not working? What's working? And creating that kind of real picture of reality, not the reality I wanted
Yes.
to believe. And I think that is such a huge um, strategic move, right? And I think sometimes we get a little bit sucked into our ivory tower. And I remember like 2 months, 3 months ago, this is very recent. On LinkedIn, I had some person who I worked with at Apple, actually, just maybe think of this Apple example, who I had to remember this person. Like, it took me a moment to remember they were actually
Mm.
a specialist in a store somewhere in the Midwest. And he was saying, "I'll never forget you coming into the store and asking me my opinion and asking what's going
Mm.
on. And I've always kept that as part of my leadership and how I actually now work with my teams." And I don't think we realize sometimes the impact that curiosity or that connection can have on just not even the business, but on people's desire to be part of the solution.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I love that. I mean, I love that whole story too, because I think it's kind of exactly one of the big strategic problems a lot of organizations face. Because executives become insulated from customers and employees, and then they start to make decisions based on just assumptions, really.
Yes.
And to your point about stores, I had stores too, and the thing I would do when I went to a store always, I would just go immediately to the back of house.
Yeah.
A lot of people walk in the store and they're on the sales floor first, but I would go to the back of the house because what I found is that's where the truth is. Like
100%.
back there, it's gritty. There's not a bunch of theater. It's like people getting shit done,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're grinding it out, but you want the truth. They're not going to, they don't filter it there. So I would always go there first
Yep.
and really hear what was going on and see what was going on and then kind of work my way out to the sales floor. But I think to your point, also culturally good because those people don't always get as much attention. So that's already a good thing. But it sort of sets the stage, I think, when you do stuff like that, that you're looking for the truth. You're not there for the theater,
100%. And it's like children in the way that if you ask people who don't have like skin in the game around
Mhm.
self-protection, they will tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Whether you want to hear it or not, they will tell you, which is amazing and wonderful. So I agree. And I used to have this saying, if the back of the house doesn't work, the front of the house doesn't work.
It
And so I
doesn't.
love that you would go to the back of the house first, right?
Yeah. I mean, that is where the truth is. So, I think that's why you got to do it. And just to talk a little bit about why doing all that matters, is I think you and I have talked about this. A lot of organizations are really, really good at reporting stuff and having
Mhm.
systems around creating reports. And we got lots of data, and we see all these reports that tell us, what happened. And that doesn't mean they're valuable. It's valuable to have that.
Yeah.
But if you want context to it and you want to start to get to the nuance, you're going to get that through the people. And that's whether that's your employees, your staff, to your point, walking around talking to people in different departments or the front line or the stores. And it's the customers, getting out and talking to the customers. Because then you start to hear that not only nuance, you start to hear less about what happened and more about what's needed for the future. And really that's, when you're talking about strategy, it's about what are you doing to get to this future to solve some need, really,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think doing that is what really matters, and if you don't do that, then you're sort of end up if you base everything on data and what happened in the past, you end up optimizing for the past and
Yeah.
not for the future.
100%. And I think it's such an important point. And, it's interesting. I think a lot about the motivations for why people either do what they do as leaders or why they don't do what they
Mm.
don't do as leaders. And I
Right.
think more senior you get, I think people have this false narrative or belief that they're supposed to have all the answers.
Right.
Or they believe that they have all the answers. So you pick
Even
your own
worse.
lane, but
Right.
I mean, there's a little bit of both, right? But I do
Yep.
think there's this feeling like I'm supposed to know. And my belief is that great leaders ask great questions,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so they create environments where the best insights come from the team, not from them. Like their job is to create the environment, but then actually kind of work with the collective intelligence to find the right answers. And in order to do that, that requires connection, right?
Yeah.
And I think if leaders lose touch with what employees are experiencing or with what customers are feeling, as you were saying, or what teams are struggling with, then they begin to solve problems that no one actually has.
Right.
Right. And so that's when employees start saying, like, leadership just doesn't get it. And we've all been in that boat, right? And so
Yep.
that's my little that's that fear I was talking about.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
like, no.
yeah.
Right. And so when that happens, belief begins to erode and
Yep.
commitment follows belief. So, the things that I talk all the time about. And so when leaders lose connection, they don't just lose information, they lose trust.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and I love your point about, not necessarily having to know all the answers, but getting really good at asking questions. That's the skill, if you can ask really good questions to collect the information, to draw it out and make people feel safe in telling you,
Yeah.
that's the skill that you gotta
Yeah.
develop as you get higher.
Well, but by the way, I'm sure you've heard this term before and probably been part of a company. I always love when you hear the term listening tour.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you're in these listening tours and no one's listening. It's actually listening tours. Let me go and do a dog and pony show where I'm actually talking like this at people,
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
what I said. And I walk away and I feel good that I've spent time in the stores or whatever the department actually is. I think
Yeah.
stores is a
Right.
good kind of generalization of decentralized groups of people. But the listening tour is literally that. You need to actually be listening and asking questions and being open to what you hear.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only time you should be talking is to ask a question and a follow-up question,
Right. For
right?
clarification, right?
And then
Uh-huh.
and just pull it in. Yeah, I mean, I think let's talk a little bit about what it looks like when you get into this isolation trap, when you sort of have
Mm,
this executive isolation, because I think sometimes it's hard to spot because a lot of times it happens sort of gradually. It's like that, whatever that thing is
yeah.
about the frog in the boiling
Oh,
water.
yeah, that which we all love that so much.
Yeah. But it does sort of creep up on you, I think it's
Yeah.
when your leadership meetings are filled with dashboards instead of direct input from customers or your teams,
Yeah.
it's when executives are spending much more time talking to each other rather than the people that they are intended to serve.
Mhm.
Um, it's when, to your point, if everyone believes they understand the business because everyone has the data.
Yeah,
But, as we talk about data without context is false confidence at best.
I agree. And, it's interesting. I think one simple kind of test, so I would everybody on this, that's listening to this, kind of ask your executive team,
Mm,
what are customers most frustrated by right now?
good one.
Then go ask frontline employees
Mm.
and then ask 5 customers. And if
Mm.
those answers don't align, that might be a sign of executive isolation. I don't know. Call me
Yeah,
crazy.
I think that's a good one. Yeah, I love your point too about ask the frontline customers and the customers or frontline team and customers, what are they saying? Are they matching?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not only are they matching, and then are they matching your
Right.
assumption, but in my experience, what you'll end up finding a lot of times is the frontline people and the customers say the same thing, but it is not what you think.
That's right, right, and even, like, the frontline, right? Like, there's the
Yep,
frontline leaders who may also have the filtering happening to them, right? And how
yep,
they then change, right? So I love your point, the triangulation is super important, right?
yep, yep. Love that.
So let's talk a little bit about, like, why do leaders fall into this trap, right? I mean, no one
Yeah.
I think sets out to be isolated as a leader, right? So
Right.
I think, there's a couple
Most
reasons.
people anyways.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Some are like, lock the door
Yeah.
and
I've known a few.
don't let anybody. Oh, that's true. That's so have I now that I think about it. Okay, so most people don't. And I think there's a couple reasons. So let's talk about three. So the first, I think, is success naturally creates distance,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think the higher you rise, the more filtered conversations you get, right? And
Yep.
second, hierarchy filters truth. And so people tend to soften difficult messages. And I think they don't want to disappoint leaders. They trying to protect themselves. They're trying to protect
Yep.
other people, whatever it might actually be. But either way, I think, or leaders tend to end up getting what I would call a more polished
Yep.
version of reality. And I think third, leaders start trusting summaries more than stories,
Oh,
right?
good one. Yeah.
And stories reveal beliefs. And I think that is super important for people to kind of understand is the underlying reasons that things happen, because beliefs kind of help to unveil or kind of explain behavior. And so that's why I always say, like, people don't behave the way they do because of what they know. They behave the way they do because of what they believe, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't understand those beliefs, then you'll never understand the behavior.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. Amazing point. I'll give you two more. I'm gonna add to
I
your
love it.
list. Two I'm thinking of are busyness and the need for speed,
The
right?
need for
The
speed.
need for speed.
Yep, I love it.
But we get into that. Like leaders are often get so involved in so many things that they start to run out of time. And what do? They start to sacrifice the time it
Yes.
takes to go and listen and truly understand. Because if you want to go on a listening tour or you're going to go do store visits or whatever, you're going to have to dedicate a large chunk of time to that.
100%.
And it's a super valuable ton of time. But if all these pressures start coming at you, and I've been in that situation. I'll admit I've been in that situation for sure. And you definitely have to learn to be like, look, I know all this stuff's happening, but I'm gonna have to stop some things because I got to get out and talk to people, and I got to see the nuance.
Mm,
And so I think it's a big one. And then the need for speed, right? And these are not completely disconnected, these two things, but it's always like, go, go, go. We got to do something. We
yeah.
need action. And so leaders end up feeling rushed and pressured to just act, to just do something. And all too often that kind of comes at a shortcut of what it takes to get that deeper understanding before you act. And I think that it does get in the way of a lot of leaders too.
Oh my God. The speed part is so important. And, it's interesting. One of the things you and I have talked about in several of these episodes, and I think it's very relevant here, is this kind of miscalculation about front loading effort versus
Yep.
backloading fixing.
Yep.
And I think the idea is that it takes time to do a listening tour or to ask people or to make sure you are connected. But the opposite, when you don't have those things, is usually you solve the wrong problems the wrong way with the wrong solutions, and then you end up in I keep calling it clean up in aisle 7, right? And so
Yeah.
there is, as you said, it is true, it takes time, but I think leaders sometimes don't do that math around kind of the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and so when that happens, when you don't take the step to do that, what happens? I mean, I think this is where organizations fall into the strategy trap, as I call it. Leaders just start continuing to drive this plan that made perfect sense to them in the isolated room.
Yeah.
But
Why
it
isn't it
doesn't.
working?
Yeah, right. And like they're all congratulating each other. We got the plan. But the deeper you get into organization, it starts to fall apart.
Yep.
And that initial plan also just doesn't even do like it uses language that is too abstract, because executive communication is not the same as frontline communication. And if you don't sort of match those words, you can get into problems. And that's
Yes.
where you get into all these assumptions that everybody's making. You're making an assumption as you're communicating it out to the team, but you're using language they don't necessarily understand.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense to their world. So they're making assumptions about what it means. And before you know it, it's all sort of falling.
It's a big mess.
Yes.
Yes. No, I think it's so true. And I think, culturally, the cost is just as high, right? So
Mhm.
employees stop speaking up, innovation slows, people begin complying instead of contributing.
Right.
And I've seen, and you have seen this, definitely, we've talked about this before, the culture becomes one of us versus them.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Because there isn't alignment or a feeling of synergy based on any sort of collaboration or the fact that I have a voice or I have agency or someone actually cares what I think, right? And so
Mhm.
it becomes very adversarial. And so, in Built on Belief, I talk a lot about the difference between commitment and compliance. And compliance says, I'll do what you require.
Mhm.
Commitment says, I'll help make this better.
Yep.
And so executive isolation, I think, quietly pushes organizations from commitment to compliance because it removes the forums for employees to have a voice and a say.
Yeah. And that we've talked about this a lot too, that the idea of having the forums, the idea of having the psychological safety so you feel comfortable and people
Yeah.
feel comfortable bringing it up is critical. So let's talk about what great leaders do. What do you
Yeah. What
think?
do they do, Kevin? I mean, by them, what do we do, Kevin?
Oh, I mean,
We are wearing glasses after all.
we are. That's true. Makes us smarter.
Only if you're watching this on video. Otherwise, we've lost our
Well,
gimmick.
that's why we're
For those
describing
of you listening on audio, we're wearing glasses right now. We're
it.
very smart.
And very good looking.
Please don't switch the video.
Okay, so great leaders, I think first build learning systems, not just reporting systems.
Yep.
Every leadership team should have really intentional ways to hear directly from customers and employees deeper in the field and deeper in the organization. And then your plans should evolve constantly based on what you're learning.
Agree 100%. I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay, so let me add a second one. Practice visible curiosity. So one of the most powerful leadership questions, I think, is what am I missing?
Yeah.
And I think that question changes the relationship because it tells people that you value the truth more than agreement.
Yeah, I love that question too, because it also assumes you're missing something. Like you're saying it to
Yeah.
people.
Yes,
You're
exactly.
not like, what do you think or something, which is like just going to get you platitudes. You're saying, I'm acknowledging I'm missing something. So tell me what
Yeah.
I'm missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, which helps bring it in. Yeah. I think third, this is a big one for me. You got to bring people in to help co-create the strategy. Don't do it in isolation in a corporate conference room. Involve people who are going to be involved in implementing it. Now, and that can happen in multiple stages. You can create something to start with, but then you go through this validation period where you continue to get input and get people weighing in as it's being created, not after the fact.
I love that. And I'll add this one piece on which I think speaks specifically to this idea of co-creation and the leader's role in that. And I think this goes back to mindset for me. And what I mean by that is I think the more senior you are as a leader, the less you are the architect of the answer and more the architect of the system to get the answer,
Oh,
right?
I love that. Yeah.
And so that system relies on not only co-creation, but the type of co-creation that's honest, authentic, and unfiltered, which is a connection to people with the answers.
Yeah. And I love you talk about that as a system. Like it's a disciplined thing that you do, it's not just a personality thing. Like be intentional about it. I love that. I think that's really, really smart. Especially because you're.
I think it's so weird that you like systems. That's so unlike.
I like this.
I mean, it seems such a weird one-off for you.
Yeah, I know it's weird.
Well, thanks for throwing me the bone. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Let's talk about some reflection questions. Maybe.
Yeah. So, what should people think about? Right? What should people be thinking about?
I mean, I think one thing to ask yourself all the time is that how confident are you that your assumptions reflect reality? We all make assumptions, right? And so how accurate are they? Like check yourself on that, I think is a good one. And, when's the last time you were clear about what you know and what you don't know,
that last part's really important.
Yeah, it's hard though, like to your point, like thinking you have to know all the answers when the reality is know that you don't know things, and be clear about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, it brings me back to that whole definition of ego around looking good, being right, being in control, right? And so if
Yeah,
people are more concerned with those things, and you're saying the idea of like I've got to know, and I can't tell people I don't know, then you're
yeah,
dead in the water. Because I mean, the reality is, right? All of us have millions and millions of things we don't know, but
yeah,
somebody in our organization does, and we have to
yeah,
find those people, right? Because the reality is none of us make decisions based on actual reality. We all kind of make decisions based on the reality we believe exists for through
yeah,
all the inputs that we get that shape that perception of reality, right? And so I think the best leaders are the ones that never stop checking, as you were saying in this reflection question, the ones that never stop checking whether those two things, reality and perceived reality, are really the same.
yeah. Which is it's a constant battle, right? And to
Mhm.
our point earlier, reality is changing all the time, especially these
All
days.
the
It's getting
time.
faster and faster. So
Yep.
you constantly have to be, learning more, understanding new
Yeah.
things. Super critical.
Yeah. Oh, look at us. Look at us. We're not isolated.
We're not
I mean,
isolated.
we're both isolated in our rooms right now, but in
That's
general,
true.
we are not
Yeah,
isolated.
we're not. Right. And you know what? We've been there and we've done that. But you know what, Matt?
Kevin, I think I know what's coming, but please tell me.
We're still learning.
We are absolutely still learning.
So we've got to my
What's
favorite
your
part.
learning this week?
What did we learn? All right. So I read this article. It was a psychology article about why adults still like stickers. Do you like stickers?
I, I love stickers.
Yeah, dude. I love stickers too.
I was
Um,
looking around to see if I had any stickers, but I do.
we still love
Maybe that's my
stickers.
problem. I need more stickers in my life.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
I'm
why
gonna.
do we like stickers?
Let's,
Now I'm curious.
well, we especially like stickers that show we did something or accomplished something, like I voted today, or, even the stickers you get at a gym or something for accomplishing something. Those little stickers are like this tiny piece of evidence that we did it. We did it.
I love
And
that. Like, is that like validation or
yeah,
is
yeah,
that,
validation, like feel like you've
yeah, you
accomplished something. And
accomplished something. Yeah.
sometimes I think that I thought what was cool about it is because I do think this relates to leadership too, because that you don't always need like a big bonus or something to be recognized. Sometimes it can be a little thing, but it's what that thing stands for as opposed to
Yeah.
that it's this piece of paper with glue on the back,
Yeah.
It stands for something and it says something about you, and it's like an identifier that I did these things or I've accomplished this. So that is why as adults we still like stickers.
Now I'm gonna give you like a virtual sticker. There you go.
Ah,
There you go. Yeah.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
Gold
You're welcome.
star.
That little star on your forehead. I remember that from kindergarten or some
Yeah,
whatever, or 12th grade, whichever grade I was in at the
yeah.
time.
Or,
No, I love that though, but I actually think that's very true. Now that you're
yeah,
saying it, I'm like, I need more stickers in my life. So I'm gonna send you some stickers. Actually, send
I'm
me some stickers. What am I
I am
talking
gonna
about?
send I'm sending you
This
stickers.
is your fun fact. You send
Yeah,
me
yeah.
stickers.
I'm
Yeah.
sending them.
Yeah. The
Count
ones that
on
they
it.
believe on them. I would like that actually.
Yeah, yeah, for
All
sure.
right. So my learning, now wait for this. I'm
Okay,
gonna talk about stickers, but a different way.
okay.
Like when someone sticks a needle in you.
Oh,
See, do you see what I did there? Um,
well done.
yeah, I know you're like, where's he going with this?
Yes, I'm
So
curious.
acupuncture is something
Oh, I
that
thought you were gonna talk about
I've started
tattoos.
doing. I've been wanting to do it for
Okay.
God,
Yeah.
years and years and years, and I finally found a practitioner, and so I've done it like 3 times now. And I've started going for general health purposes, and people always ask me like why, and so this is what I've learned so far about
Good.
acupuncture, right? So, and I kind of love this idea of it's like a shift from doing something to the body to this idea of helping the body do what it's already capable of doing,
Ooh, nice.
right? There's some leadership analogies there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I love that it actually is helping the body kind of either unlock or unblock
Hmm.
things that, or help to kind of get it to do the things it wants to do, right? So, um, acupuncture, I don't know if you know this or not, like I think it's been practiced for over 2,000 years,
Right. Yeah, it's been
right?
around forever.
Mostly,
Yeah.
Eastern and then came over to Western. And it's based on a network called meridians. And there are essentially 20 of them. And they don't necessarily map the way that your vascular system maps, but there's like an
Mm.
overlay on top of it. But what I think is really interesting is that acupuncturists rarely put the needle where the pain is.
Yeah.
So if your shoulder hurts, they might treat your hand or your foot. And so I think this idea of sometimes we try to solve something without really understanding where it's coming from. And
Yes.
so a connection back to our conversation about executive isolation is without real understanding of what's actually driving the thing, we tend to solve the symptom, not the cause.
Yes. Wow. That was
So
amazing how you
there.
did
Can
that,
I get
by
a
the way.
sticker for that, please?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, I will say funny too. I've only done acupuncture once,
Did you
and it
like it?
was
What'd you think?
well, it was when I threw my back out, and it was so bad, and someone told me to do acupuncture, and what's funny is it's exactly what you said. She put all the needles in my hands and feet, and my back felt so much better.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Well, partly because you're in pain in other parts of your body.
Yeah, maybe that's what
Relatively
it was,
speaking,
yeah.
my back was fine.
Yeah, you thought your
No.
back hurt, try
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Exactly. I will tell you that literally my acupuncturist said last week, because I've also been doing Pilates and like Pilates, all your core work. And he said at one point, he goes, for a second, he goes, I thought this muscle beside your spine was your spinal cord. That's how tight your muscle was.
Wow.
But
Mm,
through acupuncture, it helped to loosen it up. But anyway,
really?
yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Big fan so far. So
All
far.
right.
We'll see what
Nice.
happens. Yeah.
That's a good one. All right, Matt, with that, I think we've reached the end of our time today.
Oh my God, these go by so fast.
I know, they're so fun. I love it.
They are
Let's do
fun.
another one.
Yeah. Little tidbits of wisdom and information to help people
Something
be
like
better
that,
leaders,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
Is that what we're saying it is? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And if nothing else, you learn about stickers and acupuncture. So hey, time will
Hey, I mean, you always gotta stick around because you never know what's gonna be at the end.
Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah. All right, so
All
with
right, my
that,
friend.
thank you. Thank you for joining us on Been There, Done That, and Still Learning.
We will see you next time. Have a great week, everyone.
All right, see y'all.
I've been there, done that. Yeah. I've been there, done that. Yeah. I've been there, done that. And still